I want us to work together again, Maria. I want to tell the story of your fucking life in bingeable fucking installments. It will be so unbelievably inventive and groundbreaking in its comedy that alt comedy Twitter will choke on its own jizz. And here is the cherry on the streaming Sunday. We will focus on mental illness and we will destigmatize it forever. Yes!
I'm finally in a healthy relationship. And my mentals are pretty stable. It's pretty great.
Living with someone is hard. It's all about how you handle it.
Can we get a bottle of water up here? I am just wobbly and hot like a flan. Magic right there.
Use your boobies. Maria, you're making me very uncomfortable.
I know.
Yeah.
Where's my motherfucking La Croix, bitch?
Coming up on the demo.
What kind of upside down world am I living in? Is this a season 2 of Stranger Things?
Ana Gasteyer of Netflix's Lady Dynamite, season 2.
It's a real joyride.
And it's divine and unusual.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's actually both of those things completely.
It absolutely is.
I guess I should be talking into my mic.
Do you want to just give our audio guys a workout and we'll just like
Hi there.
what they can do?
Hi.
Talk to me. You know, your character on paper in a lot of ways is a Hollywood agent,
Yes.
sort of big, sort of looking for things to exploit and make money off
Yes.
of. But then filtered through this show becomes something much more surreal and divine and unusual, and a real
joyride.
Where does that? I mean, do you see that on the page, or does that happen when you and Maria and the director sort of start messing around and playing on set?
Well, no. I mean, the part is pretty clearly. I mean, the show is a very surreal lens, certainly, because it is Maria's real story of having, struggled with mental illness her whole life and her own diagnosis of bipolar 2. So that's the starting place, but then the people and characters and the way the story is told in this non-narrative way exist in these various heavily filtered worlds. So Karen Grisham, the agent, who really represents like Hollywood and all of its evils and exploitative, opportunistic, lust, bloodlust, I should say. She's always existing in the kind of the way I would say the story, season 1 at least, set up Hollywood is sort of the most manic part of Maria's personality, and the kind of uncentered, potentially narcissistic disaster that Hollywood becomes for people. So my character is the person that represents all of that. So I wouldn't say, is that what you were asking?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, that's exactly what the character represents, and you get that on the page. But like I said, I think when it comes to the performance, the two of you can get sort of so wild and wacky in the midst of it. I'm wondering how much of that is on the page versus sort of finding a lot while performing with each other.
We do find a lot. She's a really willing foil, especially given that it's her show. She's super welcoming to my bulldozing her, which is what the character does. She's a human bulldozer. A lot of it's on the page, though. I have to say, like, I'm not that. I mean, maybe it wouldn't be for another actor. I'm not that deep of an actor, so I'm not that like methody. I either completely know who someone is or I don't, and that's always how I've responded to material if I haven't written it myself. So when I first read the character, I completely knew who she was. Playing her has not been like a searching struggle. Like I know a million people like her. I poured them all into one.
I definitely didn't think Karen Grisham was a searching, walking phoenix-like struggle for you.
No, I mean artistically, like sometimes you have to kind of get there. Actors like finding it. That's not that. This character is very clear to me. And the other thing is, because those women, or those people, I should say, in Hollywood, men and women, their objectives are really clean. When they talk about like an actor's intent or whatever, or what the why of the scene is. She wants to get rich and successful on anyone's back and on anyone's success. So if Maria was in a car crash, she would figure out how to make money from it. It's very clean. So every scene is always like very obvious what it is I'm trying to win out of the scene.
Right, every scene you can kind of walk into and be like, what is the thing she's trying to make money off of?
How is she trying to...
salesman in a lot of ways.
Completely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it fun to play a kind of a used car salesman style character?
It's beyond fun. It's super freeing because Karen Grisham does not care what anyone thinks of her. She does not care if anyone likes her. She does not listen very well. So it's incredibly fun as a result because it's just unapologetic and relentlessly, ruthlessly opportunistic and bitchy.
When you were coming up in entertainment, like essentially after you got the groundlings to SNL, and that's a period of time I feel like for performers when they get SNL, the doors get open for you a little bit. You sort of just get to see behind the door. Did you see a lot of Karen Grishams at that time and people trying to sort of make the money off your back at all?
Oh, sure. I mean, that's just the nature of the business, right? I mean, that's when you meet all the douches, like all in one beautiful fell swoop. But I mean, there's also
a period of time before you've kind of set up your own world in the industry, you know?
Yes, exactly. Well put. All of what you just said. I mean, I have had the same agent since 1994. I was signed by my agent literally at the Groundlings, and she is an incredibly warm and loving person. So I have been lucky in that I've kind of fashioned my own little life with weirdly ethical and responsible. I mean, my managers write thank you notes. They're the most like a lovely. I mean, that's what and the people that I work with, I think. Kindness is a high value to me. So, and you do spend, it's sort of gross, but when you get busy enough, you spend a lot of time with the people that you work with. I mean, I talk to my representatives more than I probably talk to my husband, you know? So I have to like them a lot.
Watching this right now going, this is true.
No, he would agree, believe me. It's our anniversary tonight. And it is my 21st anniversary today.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. I know, thanks. So sweet. I always feel like people applaud that, like, oh my God, you didn't get divorced. That's so great. No, but I can't really take credit. He's just a super nice guy and extremely comfortable. We're very independent. We both work a lot, and we're happy to find each other at the end of the day.
What's interesting is that with this audience, or I think with any audience, if you had said, I've now been divorced for 10 years, they'd go, yeah,
woo!
You're single. That's great.
You go, girl. Yeah, it's true. What was my point?
Say it in a tone and they'll clap for it.
Yeah, but this is like the first year, though, in maybe 5 or 6 that we've actually celebrated on the day. Because again, we back to the point of hanging out with your agents. It's very rare that we're both in town and remember that it's our anniversary. So.
What's your favorite thing to do on your anniversary?
We're not like super ritualistic or commemorative. We are going to go see Chris Hardwick actually at Caroline's because we just both love him on many levels. Again, there's an example of a super talented person who cares tremendously about what he's leaving on the planet, and I just really admire him. I admire the Nerdist stuff that he does, and I admire what he's trying to do in the world. He's trying to make something fun for people.
When did you find? And I don't want to dig. You know, you're here to promote the show and
no problem.
Stuff. I don't want to dig too deep into your career and your past. But I'm curious when you were coming up, when you found that sort of little world that you could build for yourself outside of when you got those agents. But you get exposed, you do different projects, you get exposed to different kind of people, different work ethics.
I'll tell you exactly when it was. It was when I left SNL because everybody wants to work with you. I have a weird career because everybody has a weird career, but my career is made up of television comedy and musical theater. And they're very different in some respects. Musical theater is very earnest and sincere and a kind of like hardworking, New York-based life that's slightly anonymous in some respects, even though there are musical theater nerds out there who love what you do. It's very like private in some respects.
Well, a successful musical theater career is in many ways a kind of blue-collar entertainment career.
Completely. Yeah. I mean, you go to work with your little salad in your Tupperware, and you take the subway. It is very much. It's very disciplined, and and I did it in some respects, I think, as an antidote to the sort of mania of SNL, and the kind of SNL at its, best is pulled off well, right? You're like always pulling it out of your ass. So I think I kind of needed a little bit of that because I come from classical music. That was my first thing that I did. Even though I loved theater, I was a violinist and I was a voice major at Northwestern, found comedy, found my people, left the voice major thing. But so it's like both things are in there. Like you can't help it if you grew up practicing an hour a day, even if you hated it, which I did. I hated it. I hated the violin and I hated German lieder songs. But it's there. It's like part of who you are. There's a part of you that feels like you're not doing a good job unless you've rehearsed, So that's where the musical theater kind of came naturally to me. And I admired it on a totally different level. so that to answer your question, the Hollywood people who had the patience for the musical theater side of things and the theater side of things were the people that were my people. So I ended up switching over to a New York-based management firm, for example, who had weird sort of multi-hatted clients who did theater and also did movies and also did TV. So, because a lot of people in LA be like, why do you want to do theater? You know, like there are a lot of people who even say like in musicals, like, I don't like it when they start singing, you know, so it's so annoying.
My favorite thing, because then it's like, well, then you just don't like musicals. That's okay.
My
Like,
husband actually, one of our
criticism.
things, he's like, you can't be friends with us if you don't like animals, food, or musicals. You don't have to love all three of those, but you can't be like, I don't get why they just start singing. Or like, what's the big deal with food?
I don't
Like,
get
you know
why they
those
just
people?
start singing is like going to a stand-up show and be like, I don't get why does he just start telling jokes? It's weird.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
That is the thing you're there to see.
Which is basic, and I get like if some people are allergic to dogs, I get it. But you again, just like to me, saying like I'm not an animal person is like basically saying I'm a misogynist. Like you're just like they exist. They're biological parts of our existing planet. Like you might want to get to know some of them. I don't know. You might have a breakthrough. So that's when my representatives were. I think became more about people who shared my values a little bit and weren't going to be really bummed if for a year I wanted to do a play at Manhattan Theater Club and make $1.50. You know.
And it's one of those things that you can tell too when you say it to them on the phone or in the meeting.
Totally.
And they're like, well, "Are you sure?
No,
Because
you
we've got
see-
this TV show with Rob Schneider. It'll be good."
Yeah,
You know,
and
it's a
all
sure
they're seeing is
thing.
like the whatever massive dollar signs, and you can see sort of like those electronic shades, you know,
Yeah.
like in a hotel. Like if you start to talk and like it's just a slow descent inside somewhere to another. Yeah, exactly. So so I stayed in New York and I rode less traveled it, and I'm super grateful. I have exactly the career that I want. I feel, in fact, this fall is such a fun moment because I get to have this, which is like so much fun and so creative and such a like everybody in this is a comedy superstar. I mean, it's ridiculous. Mitch Hurwitz is the EP, did Arrested Development, and Pam Brady from South Park. It's very credentialed and cool and fun and smart and interesting and easy to work on and creative.
And Maria's one of those people that people who like comedy just love her so much.
As well they should. She's the best of what the new streaming life has to offer because she's a complete and utter original and she's not shoehorning herself into wacky neighbor times on a half hour, which is where everybody used to live before. So I feel like we're in this wonderful golden age of content where all the weirdos are getting their moment, it's great.
Explain, for those who don't know exactly what you mean, but shoehorning into the sort of wacky neighbor time.
I mean, I've played the wacky neighbor and
Yeah.
it's really very fun actually, but I enjoy it.
You're there for less time.
And
You get to.
yeah, oh my God, exactly. Phone it in once a week and fly in and land a bunch of funnies and leave. It's actually really fun. But yeah, I mean, and the model has changed. I mean, as recently as 4 or 5 years ago, there was this pilot season, where there were 3 big networks, 4 if you count, Fox, and you would pray that you would make one of the 20. You would get a part in one of the 20 pilots that were being made annually, for those networks, maybe 10, and pray that thing would end up on television. But now with all these streaming services, there's a lot more content. There's more room, and which I like because I'm also on the show People of Earth for TBS. They're shorter, so creatively, I feel like they're more careful. These shows, they understand their arc, they understand what story they want to tell. Practically speaking, it means I'm away from my children less because I can go for 3 months and film a series and be done with the year, and then do 10 episodes of something different, that you have a little more freedom.
They also have a different kind of fan base, I think, as well. The fans of these shows are
More specific.
and far more loyal and devoted than fans of, even though a show like, just as an example, King of Queens or something 10 years ago, while it may have had more millions of people watching it, those fans were kind of just like, it was a show that was on.
Right.
People tune into Lady Dynamite. They choose to watch it. They choose to watch People of Earth.
And likewise, working for Netflix is really interesting because they really know that. When they're going in, they know that there's an algorithm of people who like Maria Bamford and Mitch Hurwitz and Ana Gasteyer and whatever. They can and they're not in this sort of frenzy to please everybody. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Where you're on a network show, things do get softened because they're trying to appease more of their advertisers. They have to, and Netflix, they already know they've got their budget set and they know who's going to be happy.
Now, you said this is a great time for you because you have People of Earth, but you also have a live show coming up, right? A Christmas
Story live on Fox. So the movie, which you may know and love, A Christmas Story, there's a musical version. Pasek and Paul, who wrote La La Land, and Dear Evan Hansen, so they won Oscar and Tonys last year. They wrote the music, and it's one of these live musical events on Fox. I was in Grease Live a couple years ago, Mark Platt, to put it all together, I did Wicked. That was my big move out of SNL, so I did that for a year and a half in Chicago. I played Elphaba and Broadway. And Mark is the producer of Wicked and the producer of Grease Live and now the producer of Christmas Story Live and La La Land. So this is one of these live television musical events. Maya Rudolph's playing the lead, the mom, and Matthew Broderick and Jane Krakowski. It's a really fun cast. And then a bunch of darling little boys who tap dance. I mean, what could be cuter? So it's a great Christmas family event, December 17th, and they wrote this number for me. It's a part of the movie that is not on camera, and they've written her in.
It's not on camera, so...
Meaning, so if you know the story of the movie, A Christmas Story, so Ralphie sells out this kid named Schwartz for teaching him the F-bomb. So there's a moment on the phone with Mrs. Schwartz. So I play Mrs. Schwartz, so that when they made the musical, they kind of fleshed it out a little bit as the only Jewish family in the town. And so now I sing the Hanukkah song. They've written a huge Hanukkah number for me. So it's going to be really fun. I had probably one of the most, I have had a life of exciting moments and days that I'm so grateful for every one of them. And on Sunday, I sat in a bungalow with Pasek and Paul, and they had their piano, like it was like out of Singing in the Rain. They're like, and then we think it would go like this, and I sat there like, all right, this works, and just, it was the most, I just couldn't believe I felt so overwhelmed with gratitude, and again, there are a lot of moments I stand out here and watch myself, and that was truly a top moment, because it was super
I've
cool.
heard that they wrote it for you, that they kind of came up with this part because they wanted to get you into this.
They did, or so they say. Yes.
That's what they all say.
Well, I feel like they said that to her, but they did call me up and say we have you in mind for this Hanukkah number, and we want to write it, and what do you think? And this is what we're thinking. And I got to share with them some of the music from my record. My record has kind of a throwbacky, jazzy quality to it, and so I kind of shared that with them, and then they wrote the number, and now I get to sing it.
Where did the sort of throwbacky, jazzy quality on your record kind of come from? Where did that influence come from?
A little bit of everything we've talked about. So, I mean, I was a trained classical, but again, I think as the comedian and the improviser, like jazz just works better for me. It's a looser form. I am kind of old-fashioned in some ways. I like to throw a party. I like people to get drunk and sit around a piano at my house. Arguably,
Anna and her sister's style.
Yeah.
Not that director, but yeah.
Yeah, I just like old-timey, ridiculous music. And I also think there's a lot of comedy in novelty songs and in the old... I play the violin, ironically, in my show. There's a lot of just old-fashioned goofball, bicycle horn comedy in what I like to do live. So the jazzy thing lent itself very well to that. And I have a belty voice, so it also works in some of those throwbacky numbers, the kind of Merman-esque ridiculousness.
When did you find that your voice worked in those types of numbers? Being around the house and performing them around the house, kind of?
Sure, lots of time around the house, yes. A lot of it, when you start to put in, it's like everything. I feel like it's boring for other people to hear, but, when you work on Broadway, people approach you and ask you to sing at things. And it's a process, right? I describe this kind of like rigorous, disciplined me. And for a while, it was like I would show up and I would have a gown and there would be a baby grand. And it just felt like bullshit, Am I allowed to swear? But I'm like, it had this kind of BS-y, it just wasn't me. Like it felt, so the more that I kind of worked on an act that felt genuine and just felt musical, and I always have a strong percussion player, and I always say, bring your most ridiculous sound effects. I want duck calls, and I want, I always have, I try to have as many funny instruments, as possible. If I could travel with a bassoon and a trombone behind me at all times, I would be the happiest person in the world, So a lot of the arrangements, as we worked, I worked with a really fun arranger, this guy, Julian Fleischer, who's a jazz singer here in town, and he's got a great sense of humor, and we just slowly found that was where the sweet spot is. And to me, again, a live show should feel a little special and a little, when I travel with my act, it's like, I want people to feel like they kind of got dressed up and maybe had one too many martinis. It should feel like a fun party. I do host parties a lot, and I like entertaining, and so that I'd rather that than people walk away thinking, God, that German leader song was so powerful. I have 2 ballads in my show, and I can get as emotional as the next guy, but like it should be, again, standards. I mean, I did Make Someone Happy over the weekend, and it's just like the most beautiful, perfect classic, just in time. Like those songs that are.
Do you have themed parties when you have parties? Are they themed or are they just get-togethers?
It is funny you say that. We often go to Mexico because it's fun. It's just a fun party.
Throw a party in Mexico.
No, I mean a margarita.
Oh, okay.
Watermelon marg. No, I don't. I mean, yeah, I do hire a piano player a lot. This is one of my hostessing secrets. People always think it's like really expensive. If you have a piano in your house, which I do, and that's another secret, you can rent to own a piano for very little money. Yeah, I think I rented ours for $25, $30 a month until I owned it. Yeah, it's like the old-fashioned model. Anyway, we have a little...
Like a grand piano?
No, I have a Yamaha. It's straight ahead, just simple, upright. But we always hire a piano player because there's always a student in music school that is happy to come and play tunes in the background. And it's so magical to walk into a house and hear a piano playing at a party. It's like $100 for the night. Like it ends up being a very affordable add-on to your... I mean, $100 is a lot, but it's still like a cheap thrill, relatively speaking. I mean, some people can bring wine, for God's sakes. Yeah. They're coming to your house. And then inevitably, everybody ends up sitting around and singing, and it's so fun.
Yeah, but $100 a night to experience the wonder of someone walking in your house.
Totally. For 4 hours.
Piano player?
Yes, exactly. That's like my favorite cheap
hundreds
thrill.
of dollars for that.
Yeah, people think it's going to be like a super snazzy, and it's just fun and lovely. They'll often come with little like Broadway standards and play, and then everybody will sing at the end of the night. It's my favorite cheap trick.
That's amazing. I love that idea.
That and Costco shrimp, they have a really good lime shrimp cocktail. That's if you take it out of the tub and put it in another thing, you'll thank me.
Now, we talked about SNL briefly, or at least, the period of time that you were there. I'm curious, I think everyone's kind of curious from anyone who was a performer there at what time, what it was like watching that show this past year and a half.
Oh, yeah. I can't just isolate it to SNL. I mean, I'm a huge Samantha Bee fan, and
she's the best.
She's incredible. And it's interesting. I actually interviewed her for the New York Comedy Festival a couple nights ago, and I had interviewed her at the launch of that show, and it was as women in comedy, I feel like there's this kind of onus on us to. I mean, I was part of this crew of SNL girls that were groundbreakers. Whether or not that's true, there were plenty of groundbreakers before me on the show as well, but we sort of got that moniker and that title. And Samantha was resisting, I felt, that pressure going into late night 15 months ago. What happened after the election is I think a lot of people rose to whatever it was their title was, and kind of, I personally have certainly owned my feminism and my leadership as a woman a lot more wholeheartedly in the last year. And I think Samantha has leaned in aggressively in the best possible. She's like, so it's gonna be partisan, you're gonna call me partisan? Okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna say what needs to be said, and I'm gonna call out, her motivation is curiosity. It's not ratings. It's about learning about these things and exposing people to ideas. And she's done an incredible job. And I think all comedy across the board has had to kind of embrace its partisanship. It's had to tell the story that they are the most passionate about, whether or not that's, pro or anti.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you? Is there any part of you that wished you could have been there on SNL to
it's funny.
Impersonate anybody in the administration or during the campaign or anything like that?
I mean, yeah, sure. I never consider myself an impressionist, but yes, I've had my moments, certainly, where I've wanted to impersonate any of those, intriguing personality archetypes. But I have to say, for the most part, I personally have been fairly exhausted, as many of us have been. I'm a card-carrying progressive, and it's been an interesting year, a very educational year. I've been less funny about it than I have about other things, and more curious about how we identify ourselves as liberals, what went wrong, and why people were so disillusioned to make the decisions they made. So I've been on this super downer personal syllabus of reading like every book I can about the economy and race, because I feel like there was just a lot that we didn't know and we didn't talk about, and we've all seen this, big ugly rock get lifted up and the slimy slugs beneath, in everything.
The slimy slugs.
So many slimy
so
slugs.
Slimy. So slimy.
Yeah, so I feel like that's been more interesting to me than making fun of anything, because it's been mostly really disillusioning.
Humor in this administration, and I hate referring to them as this administration because it makes them sound like they actually deserve that moniker,
Yes.
But it's been really hard because it's increasingly less funny. I mean, it was during the campaign and after the election, like so much of it is not funny that whenever he, and I say he is in Trump, does something that is like stupid but not like destructive in any way, it's almost like a breath of relief. You're like, oh, that's...
Well, like Sean Spicer in The Bushes was one of the greatest things that we've been given. And everybody leapt like on that one because it was so refreshingly just old school stupid.
Silly.
Yeah, exactly. Because for the most part, you just fear for people and it makes you really, really sad. On the other hand, things like, honestly, it's interesting, like I binged Will and Grace the other night. I watched like 5 of them in a row, and I was my husband keeps saying this with music. He's like, music's gonna get really interesting in the next 24 months because that's what happens when you have a regime that's more repressive, that wants to shut things down. You leak out artistically. And same thing with comedy. I think in some ways the broader strokes are much more fun and a relief. Like it was just sort of a nice thing to sit back and watch, a bunch of really smart pratfalls, and they're very open about the fact that they're pro-gay and they're liberal and whatever, pro-gay, whatever that means, that they're just progressive. I am pro-gay, but you know what I'm saying? Like and in some ways during the Obama administration, when things were so sort of tolerated and the tolerance was kind of the understood tacit implication, you don't have as much to sort of fight against comedically, So I don't know. What am I? I'm sound like some jackass pundit, but I do feel...
You grew up in D.C., you're on SNL, you're a smart person.
Yeah, but I'm not like a political humorist, like that's like a thing.
That's why you're funny.
Politics are often not funny. I also would just rather, anyway, there you have it. I'd rather march and call my senator and... I don't know.
Same. Let's get some questions from the audience. What do we got?
Oh,
here?
awesome.
Right here.
Hi.
Hi.
I was curious, what's your favorite episode to film in this season?
Of Lady Dynamite?
Yes.
Last season, season 1. Well, this season oh God, it's so insane. My storyline, when I'm not revealing anything that you won't find out in the first episode. So Karen Grisham's one self-driving Tesla crashes into her other self-driving Tesla, and she has a spiritual awakening. And it was so incredibly fun to me because so I wear robes. I don't know if you saw that. My spiritual awakening was really just that I saw some opportunities for more success, and I decorated my office with a lot of Buddhist stuff. I mean, that's pretty much and I wear robes. Like that's my spiritual awakening. So the car crash was hilarious because we kind of discovered in it just that this human being is so opportunistic and aggressive that even in the moment of being in a violent car crash, she's thinking about how she can sue Elon Musk. So that was probably my favorite. Yeah.
Next question.
Hi.
Hi.
I know you mentioned your musical background, and Mean Girls is about to be on Broadway.
Yes.
I was wondering, what was it like getting to, bring that into the stage?
Well, I'm not in Mean Girls, but I'm going to go see it actually tomorrow. I'm driving down to Washington with my family to see it. My daughter, Tina, had my daughter come to an early rehearsal, which was really sweet, to get the teen perspective, and she will not stop talking about it. She said it's just phenomenal, and I think of any 2 people on the planet, Tina and Jeff, are the people that could create a phenomenal musical out of a great story. So I'm really looking forward to it.
One more question.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm wondering if you think that being like an improv performer, like your time on SNL, has made you a better comedic actor.
Oh, I definitely think improvisation has to do with everything, for sure. I think just being in the moment and yes-anding and listening and all of the basic tenets of improvisation make you a better actor, period. And certainly all great comedy writers, Pam Brady being one of them from Lady Dynamite, it's sharply written, incredibly sharply written. I don't I don't do much material these days where I feel like I could do better with that, but they do always allow for a take that's fun and ridiculous, and if you're present, you usually can add and decorate accordingly and have a great time with the work.
Do you still try to do improv shows whenever you can?
Never.
Never.
I never ever do.
I knew that was a never. I haven't heard of you doing an improv
I don't want to go.
show.
Somebody invited me to an 11 o'clock set at UCB the other. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I am
Friends that
literally.
do improv and I just can't. I can't do it. I can't
Yeah,
go.
I mean, I'm deeply into my New York Times crossword puzzle by 11 o'clock. But no, improvisation, I mean, certainly you use it all the time. I use it on stage, of course, in my act, because you have to be on your toes for that. And yeah, I did, Dratch and I do this, Tina Fey is the EP of the show Great News, Tracy Wigfield show, and we play basically Hoda and Kathy Lee, and it's incredibly fun. And so we improvise a ton when we're doing that because we're just being, it's called morning wind up. It's like we just sit with tumblers of wine, and it's so much fun because we're not playing them, but we are playing two of the stupidest drunkards in the morning on a talk show possible, and so we just improvised our way through that last week, and it was Andrea Martin's on that show, so it was just like a comedy joy sandwich of
God, I haven't watched Great
I
News
laughed
yet. I've
so
really gotta
hard
watch
that
this.
my like abs hurt the next day, like where I thought, did I do sit-ups and I don't remember it? But I had, like, was actually just being around Dratch and Andrea. I mean, Andrea's a goddess. It's just funny as they get.
Who's the hardest comedic performer that you've ever worked with in terms of always breaking you, has always gotten you?
Ooh. Oh, God. Will Ferrell.
Really?
Yeah, probably. I mean, mostly because a couple of things that make me laugh, because I don't break very easily. I sort of pride myself on not breaking. But when Will starts to break, which I find hilarious, he doesn't break, but he just cries like a lone, like the Native American in the smoking commercial. Just like a slow, while he's doing the scene, and just like tears will come down, and one rivulet at a time, which I find hilarious. And then the other thing that used to just crack me up so much when we do those Bobby and Marty things, you know, the quick change, like that, he would have that bald pate, and then remember, and we actually fought for this, which I also find hilarious in retrospect, like the things that you like take a stand on, and one of them like stormed the castle to talk to Lorne about being bald with a beard, you know, just like so funny. That
Really? You had to go storm the castle for that?
because he was like, I think he didn't like it, and we really like took a stand and demanded that he be bald with a beard. So he had the beard, and then he was bald with a bald pate. But you know, your costume changes are like 120 seconds, so it would be like a speed spirit gum move, and I'd be like chatting with him, and he'd be like, he'd be about to go on and be like, because he was trying not to like move his face with and it used to kill me. Like I thought, oh yeah. Anyway, so.
Would you try to get him to talk? Like, would you play games
I don't know.
with him?
I would just be like whatever, you know. Fireflying before we went on stage, you know, whatever the thing was, just saying something funny about Bobby and Marty or whatever. I can't even remember it, but no, just.
Anna, I love it when you come in. Thank you so much for being here. Lady Dynamite.
Lady Dynamite
season
drops
2 tomorrow.
tomorrow.
And A Christmas Story we can see December 17th.
December 17th, live on Fox.
Live on Fox. Ana Gasteyer, everybody. Let's hear it.
Thanks, you guys.